There you go. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule, whether it be joining us live or if you're taking time to consume the content on your own time. We appreciate your engagement with all of our organizations. Of course, this is the Texas LGBTQ Coalition of Chambers of Commerce. I'm Tina Cannon with the Austin LGBT Chamber. I'm joined with my friends from the Houston LGBT Chamber, North Texas, and San Antonio. We'll meet them in just a moment. But I wanted to give you a bunch of words on the screen because people love that in a PowerPoint presentation. But to give you a sense of who we are a conglomeration of the chambers that I just mentioned. But overall, we're really working to achieve equality and inclusion by promoting the economic vitality in the communities that we serve for both our LGBTQ and allied businesses, because we all know that when business thrives, people prosper. And to do that, we need to make sure that all of us in the state of Texas are included. So again, I'm Tina Cannon, the president and CEO of the Austin LGBT Chamber of Commerce. You can find out more about us at austinlgbtchamber.com. If you happen to be in the Houston area, you are a lucky duck because Tammy Wallace is the co-founder and president of the Houston LGBT Chamber. And we are also joined by the amazing all things chamber world, Tony Vetta. Really has been a great resource for me as I've come up in chamber life. If there's anything to know about chamber world, Tony has been there, done that, and probably should write the book on it. But he also, outside from that, has the best URL going. You can find him at the lgbtchamber.com. And then our friends just to the south who have the best food of all of us is Melissa Ochoa, the president of the board for the San Antonio LGBT Chamber of Commerce. Please learn more about her organization and join and help stand up that group. And so we are here with the LGBT Roundtable program. This is specifically designed by all of our chambers of commerce as a way to really promote and educate and understand and connect all of our BEs, business enterprise organizations. If you're not certified and you're listening to this, we're going to get you there. If you are certified, we're going to help connect the dots to get you all the way across the finish line. So let's take a moment to see if this little technology works to find out. And you'll see that on the screen, what chamber or area, if you will, if you're not necessarily in a particular city, are you associated with? I wish I had some like Jeopardy music or something to play. All right, not too shabby. Not too shabby. Let's see how we did. Pretty evenly split there. Well done. Well done. Let's see if I can get another one to go. I don't know if my next poll will show up. No. All right. So if you have, as we move through, if you have questions or comments, put them in the Q&A chat. We're going to go through kind of a standard webinar style, but if we miss something or we don't cover it, be sure you drop it into the Q&A section and we'll bring it up to the screen. But some of the goals that I mentioned earlier is really connecting our BEs through education and connection opportunities, and then training you to be the very best that you possibly can be in your space, and that you are ready to have conversations with some of the power players that we have on the screen today. So I'm going to shut up for a moment and let Miss Tammy tell you the exemplary group of panelists that we have on for you today.
Well, Tina, thank you so much. And thank you to you and your team for coordinating the event today. You said it before we started, but these are invaluable knowledge, tools, and resources that we have long after this event happens today. And like you, we've had a number of businesses that have members that have reviewed this and said that was incredibly, incredibly helpful. So, and that only happens, this knowledge gets passed along because of an amazing group of experts that we have been bringing to the table throughout the year for the LGBTBE Roundtable program. And today is no exception. And it is my pleasure to introduce this incredible panel of experts. And I want to just give a little overview of each of their bios here. And I am going to start with Heather Herndon Wright. Heather is the Director of Supply Chain Diversity and Sustainability for Vistra Corp. She has served as a supply chain diversity professional for 32 years in private, public, and nonprofit sectors, as well as being a certified WBE, where she executive produced the Eagle Award-winning documentary, Business, America's Game, Where Are the Women? And the book, The Seeds of Success. She is a master compliance administrator, a certified professional in supplier diversity, and a certified professional in supply management. In her current role, she has responsibility for the strategic direction and oversight of the company's supplier diversity, channel diversity, and supply chain sustainability efforts. She also serves on the board of directors for the National Minority Supplier Development Council, the DFW Minority Supplier Development Council, and serves as the chair of the National Association of Veteran-Owned Businesses Board of Directors. Heather, welcome. And Meredith Malecki is the Chief of Staff for Supply Chain Assurance Organization at Dell Technologies. In this role, she drives strategic initiatives in support of Dell's efforts to deliver a responsible and resilient supply chain that protects suppliers, workers, and customers. Prior to joining Dell Technologies, Meredith worked for the Texas legislature. We might have heard about that most recently, where she managed a team that analyzed risks and inefficiencies across government programs to help the Texas legislature make policy and fund decisions. She has also been involved in several international capability building programs, including mentoring Afghan government officials through the United Nations, developing enrichment activities for legislators from South and Central Asia, and the State Department, and coaching entrepreneurs from Africa in the Mandela Washington Fellowship. And last but not least, James Harris, and I'm so proud, we are proud in the Greater Houston LGBT Chamber to call HEB one of our corporate partners. James is the Director of Diversity and Inclusion and Supplier Diversity with HEB. I think we all know certainly HEB, and I love HEB and the work they do. As Director of Diversity and Inclusion, James develops policy, creates programming, and sets the strategic direction for the company and the 13 regional diversity councils across the state. This program creates value for all stakeholders, which operationalizes the D&I strategy for the company. He leads the supplier diversity strategic direction for the company. He creates, collaborates, and connects local, small, minority, disabled, LGBTQ+, and veteran-owned businesses to the company's procurement and sourcing process. His approach, and James, I love this about your bio, his approach to all things business is to move from transaction to transformation. James serves as the director and advisor on many boards and councils, Texas Diversity Council Board of Directors, True Blue Inclusion, Food Marketing Institute, chair of Supplier Diversity Committee, and a number of other amazing organizations, including the Texas NAACP. And he has received many awards and accolades because of his business acumen. But one I want to really point out here is the Outstanding Head of Diversity Award from the Houston Business Journal's Diversity in Business. To our panelists, welcome. To everybody participating today, you are in for a treat. Tina, I'll turn it back over to you. Oh, I think you're on mute.
I mean, it's only been a year and a half, right? It's probably better for those of you who know me that I am on mute the vast majority of the time. But thank you for that. I just want to take it off the screen so that as the panelists are answering and engaging, we can see your pretty faces. So right, today is about what is it doing business with, but we're not even there yet, right? So maybe let's talk a little bit about what does it mean, right? The getting your certification as a minority-owned business or a diverse-owned business, and specifically an LGBTBE business enterprise. What's the first step and kind of the tidbit of advice that you could give to somebody that is, you know, they've got their certificate, they're ready to go, they've been certified, right? Now what? What's the next step that you see? Meredith, I got you nodding, so I'm calling you first.
Thanks, Tina. I'm happy to be here with everyone today. I think this is a really great question because the certification is the most important first step for sure, but it's a first step. So there's definitely things you need to do beyond that. And one thing that we always recommend to companies is to really get involved with national associations. So in this case, I'd really recommend getting engaged with the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce in addition to the local chambers that you all are already involved in. And the reason that we see this as a really beneficial first or second step, just beyond getting certified, is that there's a lot of opportunities within NGLCC to lead efforts with other businesses and even multinational corporations. So you could host or sponsor an event. They hold best practices workshops where you would have an opportunity to really get visibility and network with multinational corporations by partnering with them to hold these. Also, multinational corporations like Dell and many others are engaged with NGLCC. We attend their matchmaking opportunities. So there's a lot of exposure you can get just by attending these events and matchmaking opportunities. And then one last benefit that we've really seen for diverse suppliers from these types of events is that you can meet other peer suppliers as well. And sometimes you might be interested in going after an opportunity with a large company, but it's too big for you to handle alone. And so really getting to know your peers through NGLCC or other organizations is a great way to look for people that you might want to partner with to take on a larger opportunity with a large business in the future. So that would be definitely, I think, a great first step would be to get involved with NGLCC. And then you may hear me say this several times today, but the other thing I would note is, once you start getting engaged with NGLCC, you can reach out to their member corporations, but do some research before you reach out to those member corporations and really think about how you want your approach to be. Do you want to start with a Fortune 100 company? Do you want to start a little bit smaller? So do some research about these companies to think about your strategy as you start to reach out to them. And then actually one last thing I would mention, that first certification is important, but make sure you maintain it. They do expire, and to become a diverse supplier at Dell, for instance, you have to have a valid certification, and we check that annually. So while it's great that you get your first certification, make sure that you don't let it lapse over the following years.
Yeah, it's great bits in there, and we'll dive into a lot of those kind of next steps. James, what's your kind of response to that? Like, what's next, right after I get my certificate? Do I just run into my local HEB and go, I'm here, let's do this? Like, what's the next step?
Well, thank you, Tina, and all of the fellow chambers, and to my fellow panelists as well. So I think Meredith did a good job of covering the basic things that you should do, but really it's really understanding your business. While it is true that having the certification does put you in a position that you understand the basic business tenets, but I think you also need to understand your business very intimately, and then how your business connects with the prospective companies' go-to-market strategy. And it could be the right product with the wrong strategy with the wrong company, or it could be the right product, wrong strategy, right company. And so as germanely as you can, do your research. That was said, I'm sure to be said multiple times throughout the discussion today, is to make sure you do your research. The buyers and the procurement team, supplier diversity, we're all running 90 miles to nothing. And the onus really should be on you to understand your business. While we certainly do bring with a certain level of business knowledge, but we can't know your business as well as you do, down to your cost to produce, your profit, where all your cost intakes and inputs are. You need to understand that. And to the degree that you can do business with the right customers, because not all customers are good customers, right? And so you have to make sure that what you're selling is a business proposition for that potential client. So really make sure this is what I have to offer and how it can connect with my potential customer, because not everyone is your client.
That's a good point. Not everyone is your client. That's a very good point. Heather, what's your experience? What's your advice to somebody who's new to this space and has that shiny golden ticket? What do they need to do next?
Well, exactly what both of them just said would apply for us as well. But your best friend is going to be your local chamber, because they're going to be able to provide training. They're going to be able to provide relationship building. At the end of the day, people still do business with people they know, they like, and they trust. So that's the best way to get your foot in. But at the end of the day, certification, while it's also required for us, we do not count you in diversity spin unless you're certified. And we use the NGLCC database to source for LGBTBEs. So that's the first step. But the next is really to differentiate yourself when you come and talk to us as your advocates, because we can be your best friend, not only inside the companies that we work for, but we all spend more time with each other sometimes than we do our families. So the more that we understand what you do, the more we're going to be able to help you navigate inside other corporations as well. And then working with other LGBTBEs, because that'll help you grow your company as well. To Meredith's point, you may not want to start with a Fortune 100 company. You may want to start working with each other and just kind of grow your business. And then you'll be ready to come and approach one of us. And then the other thing I'd say too, is if we do come back to you and we may not have a direct opportunity for you, but we can connect you with one of our prime suppliers, don't feel insulted. Don't feel like it's not that we don't want to do business with you directly, but we will advocate on your behalf and try to get you to fit right where you can grow your business the best and be the most sustainable as a business going forward.
No, and so those who are watching are probably going, oh my, I've got a lot of homework to do. So we've dropped into the chat. So if you're watching, some information on each of the brands that you see on their screen to learn a little bit more about your programs, but that's a lot for somebody who had that little golden ticket and thought, well, I have this now, it's just ready to go. Are there programs, are there training? Thank you for the chamber plug, Heather. Are there things that you can do, or that maybe a potential partner could learn from your organizations? Do you have supplier diversity trainings, vendor trainings? I mean, even some of just going through the portals on some of these can be a process. What do each of you possibly have or suggest? And we'll kind of go maybe same order there with Meredith.
Sure. Thanks very much. Yes, we do a lot of training for diverse suppliers, and we have different programs that are really geared towards different levels of maturity. For this audience, since we're focusing on newly certified suppliers, the one I most want to highlight is how we approach training with entry level suppliers. And a lot of this is really ways that we partner with certifying organizations and their regional partners. So, we have a goal to introduce qualified potential suppliers to our stakeholders within Dell. And we go to events like matchmaking events, but we also will host events alongside these organizations to get you guys in front of Dell and some of our buyers. So one example that we did in the past couple of years was we worked with NGLCC's Sipency event. And so our supplier diversity team was there, but we also took Dell buyers to the event. And both our supplier diversity team and the Dell buyers listened to diverse suppliers, give their business pitches, and we actually gave feedback to folks to improve their pitches. Certainly it was from a Dell perspective, but we aim to give feedback that would help them when they're approaching any business, not just Dell. So I think we have great partnerships and really appreciate the work that the certifying bodies do for that. We do have other diversity development programs once you become a supplier with Dell. We have programs targeted towards suppliers that we've done business with for a year or two. We also have targeted maturing programs for suppliers that have been doing business with us for a long time. And so we love to continue that relationship and continue helping diverse suppliers grow. But the first thing to do is to start at these organizations and partnerships that we do with certifying organizations.
Sure. James, you came off mute, so I'm gonna call on you next. So the same question though, is there some type of training or program offering that HEB does to help develop those intentional relationships and getting your potential partners ready to do business?
Sure, great question. So we have a number of events from training to actually outreach and engagement. And so that whenever we build a new store or do a existing brick and mortar refurbish, I do construction outreaches where I tell my prime contractors to leave your hundreds and hundreds of prime contractors behind. I'm looking specifically myopically 50, 20, 100 mile radius to the store that we're building or we're doing a remodel on. And I'm looking for subs in that market specifically, right? Because they're in and around the store, there's so much efficiency that can be gained from that. And then there's over 500 chambers across the state of Texas. And so I send information out about those events. We do table talk sessions that are specific to whether it be grocery or whether it be the perishable side or general merchandise. In addition to, we just came off a very exciting program called our Quest for Texas Best, where we are looking for Texas raised, born, manufactured, assembled products in the state of Texas. We've given out roughly close to $500,000 in cash and prizes. We've placed about 750 products on the shelves in the last 8 years. There's been over $1 million in in-kind funding that's been given to these suppliers to help drive their program. And so it's a wonderful opportunity to get your product in front of the HEB senior leaders that make things go, and food critics. And these are the people, once they say that these are the top 20 suppliers, and even beyond that, you'll have the full weight of HEB leading into your product and or your services. So that's a big program, and everyone gets engaged in that program, from the chief marketing officer, the chief operating officer, all the way down to our diversity council, our supplier diversity champions. Everyone that's in that space gets, they lean into that program. And then annually, we have a HEB opportunity exchange where I go to the buying team and the sourcing team and say what items or contracts are being bidded out, what you're looking for in products, what contracts are coming up in the next 12 to 18 months. And I invite those leaders in, and we've been fortunate over the last 2 years, we've been able to do that, do a virtual platform. And the benefit to the suppliers is that we know it can be a hassle for you to come up out of the border region or El Paso, what have you, to come into San Antonio, because it's tough to work in your business while you're working on your business. So this virtual platform has allowed us an opportunity for more reach, more penetration, both on the HEB side and that of the supplier side. And also during that session, we actually do training specific to whether it be construction or logistics. Our logistics class this year had the senior vice president of logistics. I mean, that's the guy that's moving stuff for HEB. I mean, it's like everyone that moves stuff for HEB works for him. And so whenever you get those invites out from the chamber, I send them out. I work with Tammy very closely. And she works with the other chambers across the state. We get that information out. And I'm starting to ask questions like, where did you hear about this event? Because ultimately, if you're in the business, you should hear about Dale, you should hear about Vistra, you should hear about HEB. But when you say that I've not heard of HEB programs, I don't want to be leaning in my thought, but my firm belief is that the courtship is always better than the marriage. So if on the courtship, you're not really putting yourself out there, then you're not going to do a whole lot better in the marriage. So if you're out there, you're in the flow and you're working with the chambers, you're getting certified, you're attending events, you're getting in front of people, you'll hear about these opportunities and then show up. So I'm asking, what did you hear about the event? And so invariably, every year when I have one of these events, I'll ask, someone will come up to me in a different setting, an expo or what have you, an industry related event. And they'll say, I've been trying to get a hold of HEB for all these years, and I finally ran across someone. I'm like, really? Right? Because we're not that hard to get a hold of. I mean, you can go to our website, you can talk to someone who's doing business with us, you can go to our stores and say, how do I? Just start there, and they'll navigate you to the appropriate person. So that tells me a little bit about your business savvy, your market savvy. Maybe it shouldn't, but I have to go on something, right? And so I have to go on what's in front of me. So there's numerous opportunities. And you hear from the fellow panelists say that as well, but you have to get involved in your business and care about your business, because if you don't, you can't expect us to.
Yeah, I feel like we need to do one of the HEB style commercials about this is my how to make small business work aisle at HEB.
Yes.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. And showing up is a big part of it. Heather, what kind of programs, training, offerings, engagements is your group? And you have quite a few groups. Maybe it would probably behoove us to maybe have you take a moment and explain the space that you're in and the different brands that Vistra oversees.
Yeah, that might help. Our brand's not quite the same as HEB or Dell, and everybody knows who you are. We're actually, the brand that you all would know most likely is TXU Energy. So we're what's called a gentailer, not necessarily the utility, because we don't have any poles and wires. We don't do the transmission and distribution, but we have about 55 power plants across 12 states. We have about 18 different brands, retail electric brands across 19 states, plus the District of Columbia. So we're an electric generation and electric retail company. We also retail some natural gas as well, but primarily in the electricity space. And one of the things we're really moving toward now that I know all of you are very aware of is the world of renewables. We used to be a very coal heavy fuel generator. We are now moving from coal to solar, taking a lot of our old coal plants and coal mines. We have decommissioned them. We are moving them over to solar and battery storage. So one of the most recent things that we've done is actually in California, but we're doing it in Texas as well. We built the largest utility grade battery storage facility in the world. Tesla had one in Australia, about 186 megawatts. We have one that is 400 megawatts in Moss Landing, California. So we're basically taking in all of PG&E renewables that they're generating through their hydro, their solar, and their wind, and then we're storing it and then pushing it back out as they need it. So looking for a lot of suppliers in that. And this year, one of the things that to answer your question more specifically, we're doing a lot of targeted sourcing because renewables is really a new space for everybody, even your large global companies. How do you put in solar panels at a utility grade size, right? And how do you manage that? And how do you maintain that? And the IP overlay and the cybersecurity and all those things that wrap around it. So we're really working very targeted with diverse suppliers. And in Texas, worked with several of the chambers, got the NGLCC database, in fact, pulled some from that, invited them to an event we call a Renewable Summit. And we had all of our senior executives in the renewable space, our corporate development strategy, just kind of open the kimono and say, this is what we're doing in Texas over the next 5 years. We'll be building 8 new facilities and we're going to spend $1.5 billion. And this is how we're going to do it. And this is what we're looking for, the type of suppliers that we're looking for. We will have primarily EPCs, engineer, procure, construct, one throat to choke, right? So most of the opportunities are going to be tier 2. And that's primarily because it's a new industry, even for them. So it's for us, for them, for all of us. So we're really looking for diverse suppliers that we can grow with us and with our prime suppliers that are in that space. So a lot of what we've been doing this year is really been focused in those areas. We do partner with a lot of the chambers on things like hiring the best. We tend not to do things ourselves in-house other than real one-on-one mentoring. So if we do something, we're going to partner with one of our partner organizations to do something across chambers to try to impact and affect and provide it to as many business enterprises as possible. So we work very closely. I don't know that we've done anything with any of the LGBT chambers yet in the Texas area, but would love to partner with you on that and get some of our executives involved. For instance, our senior VP of business market. So all of our sales, our retail brands would come in and talk about this is how we hire in the sales organization, or our CIO might come over and talk about how we hire in the technology organization. So different things that we can, in order to offer to business enterprises, we'll do that, but we always do it in conjunction with an organization. So we'd love to offer that up to you all. That's something you think you might be interested in doing 2022. We would love to talk to you about it. And especially any LGBTBEs that are really focused in solar or battery storage, renewables, anything in that space, we'd be very interested in talking to you. And then we can work with you one-on-one on how do we grow your business within Vistra or with our prime suppliers to a level where we can continue growing together.
And a couple of you have mentioned in your responses, prime suppliers, subs, tier 1, tier 2. So like Heather's a perfect example. Maybe I'm out there and maybe I'm a marketing firm listening to this, or I'm an accounting firm. I'm going, how could I possibly partner with one of these organizations? And I think James alluded to it as well, like, connect with a prime. So maybe we can talk a little bit about those relationships of what a tier 1, tier 2, or prime or sub is, however you phrase it in your organization, as a way or for a smaller, as we call them, mom and pops, to jump into this mix and get a piece of the pie, maybe not as a prime, but perhaps as a sub. James, I'm gonna push it to you to kick that one off. I see your head nodding.
Sure. So thank you for that. So really what we do is that we can build a store. I'll just start in construction. I'll end on the retail side, is that we can build a store. We've been doing this since 1905, right? And so what we're asking our prime contractors is to use more subs where you can. And we have expectations. If you were to take a look at small and minority, then we also take a look at minority, and then we break down the minority to make sure that we're not overly weighted in one area of our minority attribute and not in others. So we take a look at that. So there's 2 numbers that we actually track, and then we break down the attributes of the various minority entities from there. And believe it or not, because our prime contractors do a lot of municipal work, they have to do reporting, which means they already have a bevy of minority contractors they work with already. So there's no shortage there. But when I go into a specific market, it's a very tailored strategic effort to give that local business to local residents in that marketplace. I think that's the right thing to do, because it's about empowering, it's about making a difference. But also to that point is that it's whenever we have our construction outreach and or our annual opportunity exchange, we actually have our prime contractors there for the express reason of educating potential subs on how to do business with HEB. We're not building the stores anymore. our team members supervise and our superintendents, they supervise the work, but all the work is really done by our prime contractors, with the exception of sometimes when they're busy on projects, we still maintain a small list of subcontractors to do remodels in existing brick and mortar, whether it be in headquarters or what have you. In addition to, we have developed quite an interesting program where a lot of our small and minority suppliers, when they come to our events, they actually help each other. They become quite a family. They have like their own Facebook that they share with different ideas. Where did you get your corrugation from? Where did you find your kitchen? Where did you find your design for your packaging? So they share with each other, and they don't see it as being competitive. They see it as a way of helping other like-minded companies that share the same plight. So it's really an interesting dynamic that is cascaded out of this relationship. So and we also talking to our prime contractors about having a mentor protege program. Some of them have a very formalized and even some loosely defined mentor protege program, and that allows you to get into their system and work on getting better and driving your business. And certainly, as it relates to some of the specified training that HEB has that allow you to shore up your skill set gaps so that you can become a better supplier, thereby being a better supplier of HEB.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Meredith, I'm gonna pull you into the mix too. How do you connect the dots if you're a little operation to maybe a prime, and what does that relationship look like? How do we connect the dots, and kind of to James's point, right? How do you build the team so that you're ready to call on the players when you need to?
Yeah, we have a pretty similar approach at Dell to what James just described. So great to hear different industries, but we all have the same best practices. We have requirements for our prime suppliers to work with diverse suppliers of their own. We take our key prime suppliers to matchmaking events with us and ask them to be looking for opportunities to partner with diverse suppliers too. But like I think, we also directly do business, and I'm sure my other panelists do. We directly do business with plenty of small businesses. So I think getting connected with a prime or a tier 2 supplier is a great way to get in the door. But I certainly wouldn't want to deter anyone from looking at doing business with Dell. Small businesses are one of our biggest categories. So don't feel like you're too small. We can usually really benefit from all sorts of viewpoints, and everyone, like James said, everyone that's in our local geographic locations has a unique competitive advantage that you bring to us that not everybody else does.
Yeah, and Heather, I know James mentioned a little bit about the municipal requirement, and I would imagine for the reporting side of it on all of your MeBe-Weebies and contracts that y'all have. So I'm sure your spreadsheets look pretty ridiculous. So what advice do you have for people that are looking at primes and subs and tier 1s and 2s?
Well, we do. We actually have two different initiatives because of the reporting requirements are so different. We have a small business initiative because we ourselves are a federal contractor and provide electricity to several military bases. So we have a small business initiative that looks at all the small businesses and the categories within that. And then we report from October 1 to September 30th every year. Then we have our diversity initiative where we require third-party certification, and that's January to December. So it's two completely different areas. We look for different things. I mean, we look for different reporting requirements, still the same suppliers. So to Meredith's point, we definitely do use small businesses. We look for small businesses, especially at our power plants, right? Because they're going to be local, they're going to be out in the rural areas, and they're going to be more specific to those plants and be able to support those and provide goods and services to them. But then we also have the large companies and the renewables projects with the EPCs that we're looking to partner at a multi-tier level. So we ask our prime suppliers to provide an annual plan on who they intend to use. The renewable summit that I was alluding to, the targeted sourcing, we've got 4 of our prime suppliers that have been EPCs across the board that are participating in that with us. So we've invited out of, I want to say 150 companies we invited, we had about 80 that participated in that first kind of opening the kimono. This is what we're doing. Surprisingly, out of that, we only had 17 that submitted their capabilities presentations saying that they would like to present to our executives. So, and out of those 17, we really only found 11 that we thought we could really, really focus on. So we brought them in, and they have had an audience with all our senior VPs in corporate strategy and development, that entire team, and the prime suppliers, their executives. They're looking at how they're going to support us in that space. So it's a great opportunity. And again, kind of as I said earlier, I mean, James, Meredith, I are your best resources within a company. Even if you have relationships directly with an end user or supply chain professional, still engage us. We can be your best advocates because we will get to, if you give us information, we will get to learn your business and we will be able to find those places where you'll fit in best. And we can help guide and direct you on, because we don't want to overwhelm you. At the same time, we want to give you that ability to shine and really do your best performance so that you can increase your business that you do with us, both directly and indirectly. And it can be both at the same time. It's not either or, it's both and. So that's kind of how we operate.
Yeah, and it sounds like I think you all have mentioned matchmaking as well. So not only is it important, it sounds like, to meet y'all at the matchmaking opportunities, but it seems like that engagement with those primes that are there are equally as important, especially if maybe somebody's apprehensive of getting into the space. They're new at this. It's probably a great first entry. What would you say, like, our advice would be to prepare for those matchmaking opportunities or engagements that you have? If I were to show up at a HEB, Dell, or Vistra event, what should I, as the entrepreneur, have ready to go? Let's go reverse. Let's go, Heather.
Okay, I'd say, and I think James mentioned, I think we're all saying the same thing, but whoever mentioned it first earlier, it's really important to know the company that you're targeting. And most of us are publicly traded, or there's at least information that's out there that you're able to go in and read our financials, see what we're doing. We put out there, we're net zero by 2050. This is the direction our company's going. So I think one of the biggest mistakes that new suppliers make is come in and say, hey, here's what I do. How can I do this for you? We need you to come to us and say, this is what I do. This is what you're doing. Here's where I fit. Here's where I think I can get in the door. And then we can really work with you more specifically to see where it's going to be the best point of entry, what relationships we need to help you to build. At Vistra, we have a pre-qualification process for our diverse suppliers. We don't have one for our overall supply base, but we do pre-qualify our diverse suppliers. And we feel like it's important. First of all, you've got to be able to do business with us. We don't want to kill you. So that commercial pre-qualification is just kind of table stakes. Second one, any technical, depending on what you do, if there's a technical pre-qualification, we will get you with our technical people to make sure you meet those requirements. The last and the most important that we implemented was what we call a site certification. Because it does not matter how good, how well qualified and capable you are, if the end user making the decision to award that contract doesn't know you, especially for us. I mean, you can't, the lights aren't going to go out and the air conditioning ain't going off in Texas. So they've got to know you, and it's their responsibility to keep the lights on. So we will introduce you, and it may be a 3-year or 4-year process where you just start developing those relationships and they feel comfortable with you, that when that right opportunity does come up and you do provide the best value, they absolutely will pull the trigger and award that contract. So it's just really important that we know what you all do. And for us at Vistra, I'll say too, the LGBT initiative just started 2 years ago. So it's really still new to us. We're trying to build our bench of LGBTBEs so that we know the companies that we want to go to and that we can start growing with us. So it's really important that you get us information. And I will for this just say real quickly, for us, we don't have a portal. As a former business enterprise myself, the portals made me crazy. So know the companies you want to do business with and get in their portals because you need to maintain them. To Meredith's point, we've got to have that updated every year. For us, because we require third-party certification, we only use the NGLCC, NMSDC, WeBank, Navoba, and disability and databases as a sourcing tool. And we have what's called the rule of at least one. So every one of our competitive bids, we require one diverse company and one small business to be included in it. They have to go to those databases to identify them. So it is so important that you get your business description in there the way that our sourcing professionals are going to find you. So it's wonderful if you've been in business 115 years and you provide the best quality services and products out there. Let us know what you do. Microsoft certified, comma, platinum partner of blah, blah, blah. Whatever you do, just comma, 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 comma. So as our sourcing professionals go in and look for you in one of these databases, you pop up. Because we don't, and y'all may do some of the sourcing by makes code. We don't, we source by keywords. So the best thing that you can do for us, for Vistra, for us to find you is really to go in and build that business description so we know exactly what you do. And that way my sourcing professionals can find you, and so can I, quite honestly, or Mary Gano on my team. And then we can start helping you build that relationship internally, because that's the most important part we can provide, is really making sure that you know the right people and the right people know you within our companies or within our prime suppliers or within each other. You know, like I said, I don't buy red high-heeled shoes, but I probably know somebody at JCPenney or Macy's that does. So I can certainly help get that facilitated introduction. It's just building those relationships.
Yeah, that was some supplier diversity 101. That was goodness in that. Thank you for that. James, of course, your group does have a portal. It's okay. It's okay to have portals. But like what do they need to be prepared for when they come to those matchmaking opportunities, right? And Heather talked about commercial pre-quals, capability statements, like those types of things. What do they need to have in the bag of tricks so that they're prepared at those matchmaking opportunities?
Sure. Certification, sure, you need that. But really understanding your business, and I think there's something that you come with every day, you're born with, that we tend to forget when we are engaged in business, and that's the art of listening. Oftentimes we say this is what we need, and then the supplier say, well, this is what I do. And we'll say again, this is what we need, and they say, this is what I do. So we're missing each other through translation. If you listen carefully, the buyer or sourcing manager or your supply diversity professional is really giving you in code the key to the castle, so to speak, but you're not listening. And so again, and not every business model works for every company. And you have to listen to these are the needs. And what really is so rewarding for me is when suppliers listen and they have something that actually works, and you're kind of help shepherding them through the system, where it's saying that this is what we do. Well, that's not what we're looking for, but this is what we do. And so you can't make apologies for that, and you can't hold yourself hostage to the fact that you can't do business with everyone. Sometimes no right now, or no is not the right business model for us is a very appropriate answer. No is a very appropriate answer. It gives you an opportunity to go back and retool if you so choose, or make that decision, as we all have to do at some point, and say, I can't do business with X company because our business models don't match up. And we have to be certainly big boys and big girls to have that conversation, but we can't be afraid to have it because it needs to be had so you can shorten that sales cycle. But listening is critically important, and knowing how you can add value to that retailer. So just to show up and say, I'm selling minority status, it's happened to me a number of times. I say, what do you sell? Well, tell me about your spend goals. What do you sell? Do you guys have to hit certain numbers that you have to report? What do you sell? What does HEB buy? What do you sell? Right? And then how does it work? So, I mean, the art of listening is so very powerful, but it's one that tends to elude us, and we miss communication because we're not active listeners.
I love that. It sounds like you've heard that and had that conversation many a time. Meredith, what's your take?
I mean, I would ditto everything that James and Heather have said. I maybe just add a couple tactical thoughts, I guess, to this. So personally, I was shocked at how quickly these matchmaking meetings can go by and can pass by. I mean, some of them are 10 minutes, some of them are 30 minutes, but they're usually pretty short. So if you're approaching a matchmaker meeting, I would just really be prepared to be succinct in how you're going to give your value proposition, and covering all the great things that Heather mentioned that you need to cover when you're presenting at these matchmaking events. One other thing that I've noticed can get left off is, of course, covering that you're a certified diverse supplier is really important, but if there's other certifications that you hold, I would highlight them too. For some of our sustainability programs, for instance, we require certain ISO certifications. We have a big focus on security at Dell, and there's security certifications that suppliers can get. So you can really set yourself apart if there's other certifications that you already hold, too, in addition to your diverse supplier certification. And then there was one thing that Heather mentioned that I thought was a really great point and want to emphasize. She said, it can take some time for these things to come about. So once the matchmaker meeting is over, you just keep in mind that the companies like Dell and all large companies are siloed. So be patient with us. You might have to talk to a few different people, and we're here to help you navigate that. But be patient as you're building those relationships, and understand that you might have to spend a little bit of time getting to know a few different people in the company. And also, while we have, we're going to matchmaking events and looking for certain types of suppliers based on our upcoming business plans, it doesn't mean that tomorrow or next month we're necessarily going to be putting out RFPs in that space. So sometimes it could take several months before there's an RFP that would be appropriate, or communication that's coming out. So don't be afraid during that time to keep communication open yourself. It's fine, to send an email once or twice a month to the buyer, so our supplier diversity team, anyone else that you've met in the Dell network or your network with other businesses, and keep your mind or your name top of mind for everyone.
Yeah, those are some great best practices. I appreciate that lived experience that you all have had dealing with suppliers who are trying to get in the space. Has there been in your career during those processes times that a supplier just stood out? And what was it about their either presentation, preparedness that you just went, yep, and they almost don't even need to email you again because they're top of mind for you? Has there been something that you've encountered along the way that has been just a standout moment? James is ready to buzz in. Go for it.
Yes, and thank you. I didn't mean to jump ahead of the ladies, but I smile because there is one such supplier. Actually, there's several, but one such supplier, because the sales cycle was so long on the supplier, is one I tend to remember. And this young lady, wherever I go across the state of Texas, or I go to national events, MSDC, WeBank, wherever I go is supplier diversity. This young lady is there. She lives in Houston, but she came and fixed a real business issue for HEB. I mean, I won't mention her name. Many of you probably know her today. She's receiving an award tonight by the Houston Business Journal. So I'm going to go there to support her. But she is a great listener. She's engaged. She shows up. There's not been an event that HEB has had where we actually put the information out where she didn't show. In fact, we use her some of our commercial collateral and even some of our suppliers. She's really a person that gets it at a very high level. She shows up and she saw the real business issue for HEB, so that she started work in Houston and she morphed to San Antonio. She's doing business with HEB in Austin and up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And the companies that she's working with, in addition to HEB, they say your work is so good, they're actually, when they go to other projects outside the state, they're actually using her services there as well. That for me, it's like a full wraparound. I mean, supplier who just did it, just really just sticks out.
I love it. I love it. I love that you're so like passionately supportive, and I want to supply HEB with something. Like I want that experience. I want that relationship with somebody. It's great. Heather and Meredith, I'll let you both jump in if you have a moment that comes to mind.
I can talk about specifically for us. There's a couple of things that I really look for is data. If you've got data where you have done something for somebody in the industry that we're in, and you can show one of the other electric utilities, for instance, where you have been successful and performed to bring data to us, that always will stand out in my mind, because I can take that back and say, this is where you saved X amount of dollars, or you were able to get us out of outage a little bit quicker. This is an innovation that cut costs or long-term value, whatever it might be. And then the second thing is we have in our website a section on with press releases, right? So when we launched Moss Landing with the battery storage, I've had suppliers that'll come up to me and they know more about what's going on in my company than I do, because they just went out there and read all the press releases. And so when they come up and they say, hey, I just saw that you guys launched your Moss Landing facility and we provide very unique HVAC capabilities. How are you cooling those batteries? Is there a possibility we might be able to work with you to see if we could provide some innovation? Something like that that's very specific to things that we just recently published press releases, or in social media we just tweeted about. So there's a lot of opportunity there to get to know what the companies are doing and kind of what our hot buttons are right now. And when you know that, we know that you've done your homework, you know your business, and you know where it'll fit into our business. So that's what stands out for me.
Yeah, I love that. It's all entrepreneurs have that hustle, and sometimes we just got to be reminded to James's point, to listen, and to your point, to show up and be ready to connect the dots. Yeah, Meredith.
Yeah, I mean, I have the exact same insights to share on that one. I think James said earlier in the panel, we're all running at 90 miles an hour in this procurement world, and I think that's really true. So the suppliers that stand out the most are the ones who can help our buyers understand exactly what it is that they do, right? So like make sure that you just really highlight the business that you want to bring to Dell, or what problem you want to help us solve, and make it easy for us, because we want to be doing business with you. So make it easy for us to work with you. You'll really, really stand out. And then, echoing what Heather said as well, like don't be afraid to toot your own horn a little bit. If you've had successes with other customers and they're relevant to a business proposition you have for Dell, please, by all means, highlight it. Tell us what your value add was for your other customers, what problems you help those customers solve, and it really stands out when you give those case studies for us.
That's great. That's great. I appreciate all of y'all. Melissa's been kind of keeping an eye on our Q&A that's come through from those who are watching. Melissa, you want to run through anything that we may have missed and ask the panel?
Yeah, we actually just had a couple of questions. The first one was from Vivian, is asking Mr. Harris if you are in San Antonio at the corporate headquarters.
I have an office in San Antonio and also have an office in Houston. So I live in Houston. So I just, wherever you need me to be, if you want to meet me or have a conference call, we can do it, whether I'm in the San Antonio office or Houston.
Great. Yeah, I think Vivian and I will be making a call to you. All right, the next one, it's from Jack, but Jack is actually asking for a friend. And it says, how do marketing and advertising media buys fit into your diversity buy-in and spending? I guess that's for either one of you or all of you.
I can say we actually used to have a WBE that had the contract for media buying for us. And then we went out to bid again. Unfortunately, she lost that contract, but we do have a tier 2. That's part of our tier 2 initiative. So we have a company that does all of our media buys, and they have a requirement to meet certain, and obviously in certain markets, we have targeted marketing. So they're looking in Hispanic markets, the African-American communities, the Asian community. How do we reach out to veterans, LGBT communities? In fact, we just selected a new overall advertising company that has some really great LGBT outreach programs, and was one of the reasons we selected them, even though they themselves are not an LGBTBE. But we have requirements from a tier 2 standpoint for our media buyers to engage targeted marketing advertising companies so that we can really work with them and achieve the markets that we're trying to reach.
Yeah, I might have to get back to you with specifics on that. I'm not sure. I know Dell does not buy as much media as you might anticipate. I was surprised about that. Like somehow we're lucky enough to have people that want to feature our products for free and various things. But I can look into it and see if we have a specific policy around media buys.
And the way that we do it, we actually don't have a minority company that actually does our media, but we actually have directors in specific spaces, and their job is to focus on the African American or the Latino markets, and that's what they're charged with, to make sure that the advertising company brings with programming specifically for the marketing that we do. You may be familiar with the HEBB, the Change program, where we are focusing on, Black suppliers in Black History Month and women's suppliers from History Month and so forth and so on. That's a collaboration from our advertising team and myself and others in our media team that actually helps us pull those programs together.
All right, great information.
Yeah.
I don't see, yes, definitely good stuff. I don't see anyone else that has any other questions. If anyone else has questions, please put them on the chat or on the Q&A actually. But that's all that we've got for now, Tina.
Good deal. Mr. Vetta, are you on still? You take yourself off mute. So
Yes.
You've been listening quietly in the background, and I know you have tons of wisdom, but can you kind of bring us home?
Well, sure. First, I want to thank our panelists for being with us today. Each one of you alone would have been a great program. So having all three of you together is just kind of icing on the cake for us. And I know that our LGBTBEs are all going to be very interested. Those who weren't here today are going to be wanting to watch this recording as soon as possible. So thank you all for participating with us today. We also want to tell you, everyone, about our upcoming event, including our panelists. You could participate too in Pride Across Texas, which is our statewide networking program that we started, last year, I guess. So this will be on November 11th, and it is sponsored by ARCA Coca-Cola Southwest Bottling. And I hope that you will all tune in for that. If you're a member of your local chamber in Houston, San Antonio, Austin, or North Texas, you will get information about this. And if you're not a member, what the heck? you should contact your local chamber and become a member. And don't forget to become LGBTBE certified as well. So we encourage you all to look at the opportunities that were presented today and engage with each other, and certainly through our speakers and their portals to help grow LGBT business in Texas. So with that, I want to thank you all one more time. Tina, anything I missed for you?
That's great. Colleagues, thank you so much. Panelists, again, thank you. And now businesses that are watching, listening, participating in the advice of one of our panelists, show up. Let's go do this. Thank you all very much.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.